Oh, yeah. Tuesday. Tuesday feels like Friday.
I don't know what day of the week it is, man.
I know. The other day, I honestly was operating like it was Friday and it was Monday. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the DNVR Nuggets Podcast. Off-season edition presented, in the Toyota Lounge, driven by your Front Range Toyota stores. Toyota, the official vehicle of DNVR. Have you seen the new Camrys?
No, I haven't. They look great.
Bro, they're incredible. They're like a work of art.
I bet they look great. I bet they feel great to drive. I bet they're safe to drive your family around it.
Unbelievable and unbelievably affordable.
Wow. Well, I know what my next car is.
There you go. We got a great show. We're going to continue a little bit of the blame game. We're going to go over some news and notes. Harrison Wind will be joining us very shortly.
Thank God.
Because we're going to turn our attention now to the hiring of the next Denver Nuggets GM and head coach. Inside track, I think, for both of the current guys in those roles. So we're going to talk about all the layers, the things that they have to navigate, but also who the Nuggets hire will signal a few things that I think we should read into. So we'll talk about that here on this very show. The NBA, like the Nuggets lost, I don't know if you saw it Sunday.
I was there, actually.
And there hasn't been anything that's happened since then. So it's almost like, for a lot of Nuggets fans, Nuggets season's over, the NBA is over,
Yes.
But in this case, it was over. It's weird. There's nothing going on.
There's absolutely nothing going on. There is a lot potentially going on in Denver, though, right? I mean, that's the thing is it's weird. This could be an offseason where exactly who you expect to get the job. And
dude, nothing had happened. Like everybody's doing their the core four.
Nothing could happen.
It's possible that the team just runs back next year.
They're like, hey, you know what? We think the 5 of those guys looked good, and we need 3 more players. Very possible. It could be Adelman. It could be Tenzer, or it could be the most eventful. And
could be Kevin Durant.
Right?
Could be honest.
Off season of the Jokic era. So I like how we get to do this week of guessing. And then we'll find out.
I would call it less guessing and more table setting because it's not even about making a prediction what will happen. It's more about here's how I see the situation and how you see the situation. And it's important sometimes to say what these different moves will make because then when they happen, you want to say hey, this is how I felt about it going in.
Right.
Here's what happened. But we're going to begin. First of all, I want to ask you this just as a fun one. 4 teams left. Is there somebody you're rooting for in the finals? And I want the chat. I want to know what the chat thinks too.
I am rooting
weird allegiances
for the New York Knicks.
Oh, I can't. I actually regret asking.
Sorry, can't help it.
Really?
By the way, of all the evil empires, are they an empire?
Well,
you know what I mean. You saw how excited they were to get
North
back to
Korea
the conference.
As an empire.
They were very excited to get back to the conference finals. A more downtrodden fan base than people realize. Insane though they may be.
You wouldn't know it from talking to them.
That's the best part, man. These are my people. They're either unbelievably...
They're not your people.
Well, they're not. They used to be. They're either unbelievably optimistic and excitable or just the most miserable people you've ever met in their lives. And I some part of me appreciates
those
that.
Ones.
I'm in a group chat with them. They're up 3-1 and they're tweeting about how Tibbs needs to go, to Texas.
Really? Even
hey guys, no one in the league's in a better spot than you right now, but
there's nothing better that 90% of coaches that go on to win the championship that year were demanded to be fired by their fan base.
So true, dude.
And then you win and you're like, well, all right, I don't know.
And then you could win 3 and then still your fan base wants you to be gone if you're Steve Kerr.
Oh man, Steve Kerr. I'm telling you, Steve Kerr is the funniest one. Speaking of fired coaches,
what's up?
Michael Malone is going to be on ESPN as an in-game commentator. I honestly think Malone is a very good coach. Did a great job here. Always appreciate him. Winning as coach, maybe the best coach in Nuggets history. He's better at media. He's that good. He's so good at it that I'm actually very excited to see him.
We talked about this off the air. Where do you think Malone will go? And you brought up several times, you're he should just go to ESPN.
Why not?
Take a check and wait for the job he wants if he gets the job he wants, if it's offered or not. The TV gig is pretty nice.
Yeah.
It's a pretty nice gig. And Malone actually will be, I think, really good at it. If you're a Lakers fan, you're going to hate it, which makes it better for me. I think everyone else is going to think, wow, this guy's pretty pithy. He's got some charisma. And I obviously, as we said yesterday, would have been really crazy if he was talking about the Denver Nuggets, but I'm curious to see what Malone says kind of outside of the I can't get my team in trouble thing.
Yeah.
Because I wonder how loose he's willing to get up there.
I think he'll get loose. I don't know if you remember this, but before the Nuggets hired him, he was actually on TV.
Oh,
in between,
that's right.
and he was really good. And it was part of, I honestly think it helped him get a job because you watch him and you're like, I like this guy. He communicates so clearly, which is in my opinion, a very important prerequisite for being a great leader and a great coach, good communication. He was good at it. He's charismatic. I think he's going to be fantastic. I will say, though, he's got to call this Minnesota Timberwolves team. I'll be interested with that. Knicks, he comes from New York. I have a feeling he's going to be so biased.
I love this, actually.
Don't you think? He's a New York guy. Come on, man. How many times do you bring up the Garden?
No, he definitely will be, but you're absolutely right. He's going to be so pro.
Has he ever brought up Bankers Life Fieldhouse?
Do you think?
When I was a kid with my father in Bankers Life Fieldhouse.
Do you think he would be polling secretly for Minnesota or OKC?
I think probably OKC, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
It's hard to say.
Where are you on that one? Can you get yourself?
I'm Minnesota, man.
Dude,
I'm Minnesota.
So am I.
I mean, I just root for my guy Tim Connelly.
So
I just
do
think
I, man.
He's a winner. So.
And honestly, something about it, I came away from the Thunder series, like the Wolves series. I came away like, dang, like good game, man. Like good games. Like we got you last time, they got them this time. The Thunder one, I was like, this stinks. I did not want to lose to that city or that team. So
I don't get the city again. I'm not anything.
Whatever.
But
to
me, it's more the Oklahoma City. To me, is the type of basketball I don't really love. It's nothing wrong with it. They're great. They execute exactly what wins. I just don't love it, man. I don't love it. I don't find it that compelling.
Too fresh, but I'm pulling for the Wolves.
Yeah. And then I'd put Pacers overall, but Wolves second. I can't get on board with the Knicks, man. I'm a big market hater.
I honestly respect that about you.
Yeah.
Until we opened all those new markets. Just kidding. Bosses, do whatever is best.
Let's continue our blame game because we spent a lot of time yesterday on Booth and Malone. I think we've circled that one pretty well. Those two guys.
I think so too.
When we do talk about other people who contributed to this year, we brought up Josh Kroenke. We're going to talk about Josh Kroenke, I think, a lot today because he now is in an important role here. But I'm going to skip by there. I'm going to go to... And people are going to hate this. I just said I'm rooting for my guy, Tim Connelly. I think he's great. I think another person that deserves blame is Tim Connelly because the real truth of this, and I'm going to throw Adam Silver in this too. The real truth is the Nuggets signed 3 guys to max contracts, and they made that decision well before Calvin Booth came in. And it worked. They won a championship. So you could say everything else doesn't matter. And there's some truth to that. We would have done it. If we had to go back in time and say risk it all or get one for sure, you'd probably take the one for sure. But 3 max contracts are tough.
Yes.
Signing Michael Porter early so that they were locked into it was tough.
Yep.
And then on top of that, Adam Silver, anytime you change the CBA, there should be a rule. You remember the cap smoothing thing where the players all wanted the salary cap went up and the players were like, don't smooth it over for several years. Do 1 year where everything shifts. And of course, it led to KD going to the Warriors.
Right.
I feel like the CBA is kind of like that in that players are signed to long-term contracts that makes sense. And then when you change the parameters, all of a sudden those contracts no longer make sense. And it's like you can't pivot out of that. I think it was a bad signing to begin with.
Yes.
It was extra bad after the new CBA came in.
I think you just there was a risk, I think, of, all right, it's important, I think, to go back and look at the 1 year after the second surgery when he played. It was like his first real year playing, didn't even get to play in college. Frankly, still had a lot to learn about how to play basketball. 19 points per game, like 45% from 3 almost on, I think, 6 attempts per game. Fact check me on that. But that guy, to me, like, whoa, that guy's going to help us win a title, and we cannot let him get away. The thing is, there was always the red flag risk of the third procedure. And to me, that's what happened. Like, Porter's a flawed player, but a healthy Porter would have helped this team, I think, become truly dominant. And every year since the third surgery, I think it's been a bit more of he really does not move well anymore. So the risk was always there. But your point is that the risk equation would have been different under this new CBA. And I wonder if they would have approached it differently, knowing that the rules of the game would have changed.
I still think if you're giving him a max, there's a reason to sign a guy to an extension early because you could be, the price could go up the next year. With a max, it can't. Like, that's the part where I'm like, why not just play it out? You could offer him this max the following year. Of course, he ends up getting another surgery, but you'd already signed the deal. So I go back and say, okay, that original sin made all of this other stuff. There's other teams out there who we don't talk about bad contracts for their third, fourth, fifth guys because they're not up against it. They have a little bit more wiggle room. Like if you're overpaid your fifth man by $5 million, nobody even knows about that,
right?
Because you had the flexibility to get it done. So whatever, somebody was going to be overpaid. But when you have 3 max contracts, it's like everything behind that is the margins are so thin. So that's part of it. But then I'm also going to go to Adam Silver here, and blame is probably the wrong word. I think he's getting exactly what he wants. He is ushering in. It sucks that Denver has gone this long without ever having a Jokic. The moment we get it, it's like, well, we don't want it just to come down to whoever has the best player.
Welcome to the parody era. You're like, right now?
Couldn't we have had this in some other? Right as Denver's good enough. It's like, you know what? We want a different person in the conference finals every year. So I think that some of this is like, we maybe will look back at this 10 years from now and think, oh, that was normal. There was a different champion every year for 10 years, and that's just how the NBA works.
Right.
So blame, who is there to blame? No one. That's the NBA. But it's certainly like the Nuggets are at the frontier of this because they won right as things were changing.
100%. And I will say the way the Celtics season ended really did sort of help me reframe, like outside of the Nuggets thing, because you're just looking at 15 and you're going, you got to get 2, you got to get 3. And not getting 2 or 3 is like almost labels you a disappointment. I mean, were the Celtics not the envy of the league 2 months ago, 3 months ago?
1 month ago.
1 month ago, and rightfully so even. And I was looking, man, maybe I thought Denver could be the team that matters for 3 years. It wasn't them. Then I watched Boston. I thought maybe it'll be them. It's not them. And there is a little bit of this is how it goes now. Now, as I've written, and I think still needs to be said, the goal should still be to get greedy with 15 on the roster, right? You still got to find a way to be the team that dominated in the parity era because he's that good. But that is a little bit of what's happening. No one's even getting back to the conference finals. So it's hard. It's really, really hard. And having 3 max contracts in a transition period in the CBA has made it particularly difficult. And the thing is, for Porter, I do believe in the upside of the if question of who he might have been, who he could have been. Unfortunately, the word if is becoming one of the defining words of his career. And we also just heard the best player in the organization say, I don't believe in that if stuff.
Right.
So you know, like, listen, I'm the biggest Mike defender there's ever been because I think if he worked any less hard at him to stay on the floor, this whole thing collapses like a house of cards.
I mean, it's true. It's true. You respect the work ethic.
He didn't give himself the contract. And so if he didn't work, if he just went fine, like none of this happens. Yeah. So I respect that. But I also think now it's time where you go, we can't keep saying if. We gotta start talking about what's possible.
Yeah. I think that's all very fair. The last part of the Adam Silver blame, and this is both a Kroenke and an Adam Silver one, I think it is true that it's not just the spend that matters here. It's you lose draft picks if you go into the second apron, you don't have flexibility to make other deals. I think those things are very true and should be very carefully considered for any team that is approaching or inside the second apron. It really hamstrings you. But I think that rule was designed by owners because owners don't want to say, we just don't want to spend the money. They want another reason not to spend the money, which is we would spend the money, but this draft kit, they would become not very flexible.
Yep.
It's in many ways a perfect out for the owners to protect themselves. And to be fair, I think there is a need for this because you do have, in this day and age, you have owners worth $100 billion that it's like you can't put a penalty on that high enough to make them care. So there had to be something. But I also think this is another thing with Adam Silver, which is maybe I'm being naive on this. I'm open to it. I don't want to absolve the Kroenkes of anything on this. Like I don't like when they get unfair blame, but I'm certainly not trying to give them absolution from anything they did. I do wonder if they would have just kept KCP if it weren't for one, the Michael Malone piece. I think that Booth was afraid that Malone would just play him and never play anybody else. And then 2, the going into the second apron, not having the flexibility. I just wonder if the Kroenkes would have bit the bullet on the spend part, but not the other parts. And part of that kind of sucks because, again, I think the Nuggets are a KCP away, from winning the title.
I agree. I think, as we sort of is this Booth's decision, ownership's decision? Did they force his hand with? I was like, I think it's a really neat overlap of agendas, honestly.
Totally.
Booth really wanted Christian Braun to be the guy. By the way, Christian Braun had a great season. And ownership,
Booth was right about that. The right answer is that KCP off the bench was probably the right move.
Right.
That was never going to happen.
And that was never going to happen. So, and then again, I'm not making excuses. Like, I just wish that everyone had been able to just sort of bite the bullet and make the wisest move possible. But yeah, I think ownership going, well, he is going to be a little expensive. And now we can sort of say, and that second apron.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
We don't want to go near that.
I imagine if you're Stan Kroenke and someone comes to you and says the cheaper option's best, your response is say less.
Say less, brother.
You don't need to sell me on that. I got it. All right, we're going to go into the other side now and talk about hiring a GM because the Nuggets, I expect to do it relatively soon, and how they approach that is going to tell us a lot. We'll get to that on the other side.
It's baseball. It's baseball season, guys. Did you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's baseball.
We're going for a record, baby.
It's baseball season here in Colorado.
We're going streaking.
You can still go see the Colorado Rockies play. You absolutely can do that. And
these better be the cheapest tickets you could have. Game time, I wonder if they pay you to go.
The rooftop is really nice. Listen, I don't want to anger the boycott crowd, but I still love Coors Field. I'm actually wearing a hat right now that says Coors Field, Adam. Not Rockies. Not Colorado Rockies, Coors Field. That's what I'm repping. It's a gem.
Is that really Coors Field?
Literally just says Coors Field, not the Rockies, not even their colors. But it's a gem of a downtown stadium. And it's a really great place to hang out in the daytime. I think like on the weekend, you spill out from a day game into downtown Denver and you go, oh yeah, this is one of these reasons I love living here. And there are a lot of reasons why I love living here. And with Game Time, you can really attend a lot of those reasons. It could be baseball, it could be a concert, it could be the Nuggets. And there's also the Game Time guarantee, which means you can trust you'll get 100% authentic tickets on time and at the best price, plus fees are always included. So what you see is what you pay. Game Time makes buying tickets easier. It takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code DNVR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code DNVR for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price. And that, folks, is a guarantee. Let's also talk to you guys about our friends at Bet365, which is now an official partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. I love Bet365. It's the pioneers of live betting, and also they host some of our custom boosts, our DNVR boosts. They're really just our homies. So unfortunately, the Nuggets are out. Basketball is still going. With the Bet365 early payout offer, you're a winner even if a team goes up by 20 points, whether they win or lose. Don't know if you've been paying much attention to the modern NBA. Teams do go up by 20 a lot. They don't always win. You can always be a winner if you've used that early payout offer from Bet365. New customers can get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Sign up, use the code DNVR365, deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets. If your bet wins or loses, bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it is never ordinary at Bet365. You do have to be 21 or older and physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, back here, segment 2, DNVR Nuggets Podcast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. So let's get into this now. The Nuggets have to hire a GM and a coach. I will tell you one thing to set the stage here that happened with the Booth-Malone schism and happens almost every time is that when a new GM comes in, he didn't hire the coach. And what is the relationship with said coach? You never know. You try to, you come to the room, what do you think? Oh, I like the guy. But that new person comes in, usually has a vision. Not always, but usually has a vision. A coach has a vision. Michael Malone and Calvin Booth, both to the extreme in terms of guys who have a vision. Like they both have a very solid sense of true north, what guides them and what they think is non-negotiable in life. And they butted heads. So now that you have a vacancy at coach and GM, to me, you either bring up the next guys, which sounds like the leading option, or in my opinion, you have to hire a GM first.
I agree.
Because if you hire a coach and then go outside and find a GM, even if you bring up Adelman, but then go outside, inherently you started a plan without the architect.
Couldn't agree more. And that, I think, we touched on this yesterday. The Tenzer and Adelman reports sort of being linked in timing.
Yeah.
It kind of makes sense, right? Like, wouldn't that maybe be a package deal?
Yeah.
Unless you have some sort of guarantee, which would be a weird part of the negotiation. Let's just say it's Bob Myers, not saying that's the guy, but just for example. And you're like, hey, in the middle of this lunch, like, by the way, it has to be David Adelman. Just sort of seems like a weird way of doing business. So those guys are probably linked. And again, not to be annoying, but I think it should be said 100 times, they would also be the cheapest options. So if you can convince yourself that they're good enough at it, that it makes sense to hire someone in tandem where you can still sort of maintain some sort of executive control over the direction, and it's cheaper, that's why I think Adelman and Tenzer as a package deal should be taken very, very seriously as the potential next duo.
So here's the thing is I put this on Twitter the other day, and I don't mean this to sound controversial. Adelman and Tenzer might be the right people for the job.
They might be.
They might be. And I think Adelman, for me, we're going to talk about him later on. I actually think he'd be a good coach. I'd be pretty excited for that. And I really like Ben Tenzer. You know, he's a guy that I've always had great conversations with. He's an incredibly nice guy, and I think he's very smart. He's worked, just, you know, Ben Tenzer's worked for the Nuggets for 20 years, maybe more than that, and he's my age. It's not like he's an old guy. He started very young.
Brilliant
and
guy.
Just went through he's done every job, basically, in the Nuggets front office and behind the scenes.
Didn't he start as like an equipment manager, intern or something?
I don't remember if it was in that. It might have been, but he has done so many different things, and then he knows everybody in the Kroenke empire, because remember, the Kroenkes are, even though it's separate entities, he does know people inside the Rams and the Avs and stuff like that. He knows how the machine works. And I think that's very important to the Kroenkes. The Kroenkes, I believe, value continuity, both on the court, and you see this across their teams, front their head coaches. They don't like to fire head coaches. Why Michael Malone getting fired, it was not a thing that was like, you know, they were slow to do it, not quick. And I think that's their MO is, hey, we believe that there's ups and downs in every relationship, every team. You don't have to just freak out at anyone. But they are the cheapest option. Again, does not mean that they're not the best, but one thing you wonder about the Kroenkes is how committed are they to winning? Like, how committed are they to doing whatever it takes to win? And the pressure would be on both the Kroenkes, but obviously on the two young guys, because the Nuggets are in a moment right now where it is championship or bust. If you go with the two cheapest options on the table, it better work, because if it doesn't, it will be really hard to say, we didn't hire him because they were cheap. We hired him because they're the best guy. It just didn't work out. And be like, well, it seems convenient that it was also the cheapest option.
That is just going to be the optics of the situation, whether it ends up working out or not. And the thing is, you could also spend a lot of money and get these hires wrong. And that's worst case scenario. Like, there's not a direct more money means it was a better choice. You just really want to know that it was all under consideration, like truly on the table, especially because of how it went from Tim to Booth.
Matt Ishbia is the opposite, right? He was like, what's the most expensive option? Give me that guy. Oh, that sucked. I should have,
That was a mess. But
this.
But at the same time, the transition from Tim Connelly to Calvin Booth was about money, and it was an internal hire, and it was someone that they probably could underpay and trust, or thought they could trust.
Right. I think they also believed in him. I mean, I don't think this was...
They've gotten layers of rehiring internally right in that position. Totally. So they went back to the well.
Yep.
They did win a title. Since then, it has not worked out. And so to get that's just all going to be under the microscope when folks like us, analyze whatever decision they make. It's just... I think that's why people are saying things. I just hope it's an extensive search, because you just want to feel like money wasn't the determining factor.
And so that just sets the baseline here of the optics are this would be the cheapest option. It might also be the best, but it would be the cheapest. I think the Kroenkes value continuity. I think they try to build their organization out that way. I mean, Josh has even used that phrasing about how we try to have people ready so that if we lose somebody, we move somebody else into that spot. So it is a core philosophy. And I think that they also value institutional knowledge. And I'm like, meaning a guy like Ben Tenzer, as we get to the GM part here, a guy like Ben Tenzer knows how the Kroenke organization works. He knows the people. If you hire a new guy from outside, there is a period of how does this whole thing work? Who do I need to know? And all that.
Meeting people
that are like, who is he? It was actually very important for you to know. So I think that there's a familiarity that they really value. But the other thing it would signal besides being the cheap option, I think it would signal Josh's desire to either remain or become more involved with the team.
Yes.
Because I think you would look at, one, I think it'd also signal that they want organizational alignment. Tenzer and Adelman, I think, would be very aligned. They've been together. You're not worried about, okay, are these guys going to butt heads? It could still happen, but I think they go into it knowing or feeling pretty confident that they're going to get alignment between those groups. But I also wonder if it means that Josh Kroenke believes that he can act as a de facto president of basketball operations. He's the president now. But when you think about how C-suite people operate in large corporations, that's what the Kroenke empire is. It's $1 billion business. They don't deal with the details. They hire people to make decisions, or to bring them stuff so they can make decisions. And I almost wonder if that's how Kroenke is approaching this, of like, at the end of the day, the buck stops with me.
Right.
I have a basketball sense, very good basketball player, D1 rotational player. I have a basketball sense. I've been involved behind the scenes more than people realize in very good moves, some not so good ones, but very good moves as well. So I am going to be the guy. I just need people to be my eyes and ears and create organizational alignment and bring me stuff for me to decide.
100%.
And I think, I'm not saying it would work 100% like this. There's more nuance to this. But I do think it would signal a little bit of that Josh believes, you know what, I'm going to be more involved in this iteration of the Nuggets, so I need lieutenants.
Was buying that from the press conference, where I think in various ways he articulated the picture you just painted. Whereas as far as he identified what went wrong, he just thought, okay, these guys can be stewards of the culture and the direction, and I trust them, and I'll be a little more laissez-faire.
Yeah, you got it right. You nailed it.
God, man. School was a long time ago, but just kind of like Josh has always cared about the basketball, but okay, we have trusted these guys to be in charge of it, and they've done a good job, and I can sort of take a more hands-off approach. To me, what he said at the presser was, look, I don't need to be micromanaging, but I need to be more involved than I was. I need to have a say in this. It's actually my responsibility to have a say in this. Josh was around so much, man, on this playoff run. He was in the locker room after Game 7. He's talking to the players. I personally have been getting the sense that what you were saying is true. I think Josh would like to assume some control. I think Josh would like to change his reputation as the younger Kroenke who actually really does care about the Nuggets. By the way, that can all backfire.
Right.
Some people at home are going, oh no, this is bad news. But to paint a picture, I do think that's what's happening.
Yeah. And I think that this is how Stan Kroenke operates. And when you become this level of billionaire, who has an empire, it is actually how you operate. I can relate to this in some degree, both from my personal experience here at DNVR or All City. There's like 8 jobs that I do at any given time. And it's like, okay, well, I can't micromanage anything. So I need to steer. Yes. I need to steer the ship.
Yeah.
And I work with our chairman of the board directly. He's kind of my boss. One of the most brilliant guys I've ever. It's been 8 months since I've worked with him, and I've learned so much because he is such an unbelievably smart guy. And I've learned how to talk to him because it's like, okay, his time is precious now. He's doing
clip this for Adam and send it to him
send it to my boss here for a little raise. No, but I just enjoy it because it's fun being around somebody whose brain is that fast and can hold so many things.
Yeah.
And I think this is how the Kroenkes are. That they have gotten to where they are in life in large part because of their ability to hold on to a million things and say, what do I need to know? And hire people that give me the right information. Here's my decision. And you just kind of go down the line. Certainly Stan Kroenke.
Yeah.
The question you would have for Josh is if this was the plan, that you're going to bring up first-timers and you're going to build out a bunch of first-timers in important front office roles, but all they need to do is present me information and I will handle it. The question is, can anybody do that part-time? If that is part of the plan. And the answer is yes, because there are brilliant people out there who run huge business, like 5 or 6 are on 5 or 6 boards and run all these different businesses, and they just operate on that level. But it certainly isn't optimal, and it certainly carries some risk of what if you can't? And is that actually what is needed? And so that's the first part. We'll talk about structure in a second, but that first part, I think Josh wants to sit in that seat unofficially, but I don't think he's going to give it 60 hours a week.
No, well, this is there was always an ironic potential benefit. I think for a while it was a benefit to them owning so many properties, which is what you were just saying. Sometimes you hire the right people and get out, but it got away from them. So is this an appropriate reaction? Would this be an overreaction? Right. Is this something Josh is capable of? We know it's Arsenal, right? It means a lot to him. I know he was showing up at those Avs games as well down the stretch. So yeah, it's a lot. There's a balance that I hope he strikes, which is I can't just sort of build it like a fantasy team and walk away, but also you do not want to be Matt Ishbia, And
right.
I like Josh's availabilities after big choices, but for the health of a team, I don't want to hear from Josh too many times throughout the year, right?
Right.
But I do want to know that he's present and he cares.
And my belief, again, the bigger a corporation gets, the head of the pyramid has to have great vision and the ability to know what's important and then make those decisions. And you don't always have to be at the micro level. Things, one level layer below you is too low. That's below my pay grade. I need to make sure, sometimes I have to go in and fix something below there, but for the most part, I create a system that works. So that's what this would signal to me. When I hear that Tenzer has the inside track there, a first-time GM, and we are approaching a moment in time where it is the most important offseason / will set up the future for the Jokic era. I look at that and say the only reason they would do that is, one, it could be cheap, and two, Josh and Stan believe that their involvement can either increase or remain critical, and we don't need somebody in that role. We're going to fulfill what we usually would get there. We need specialists who manage the culture, manage the scouting, manage all those things. Not saying I know this to be true, but that's my read from my look at this is I think Josh believes he can take the wheel to some extent in a way that is abnormal for most owners, although not all. So let's talk more about what that would look like, what that means, and some of the different layers about how he could succeed in that role if that's the way he wants to go.
All right, let me pitch you on a scenario. You're watching the DNVR show mid-afternoon. You're having a great day. You realize you're really hungry. You realize you haven't meal prepped. You realized those nice spots in your neighborhood, maybe too expensive, not quite what you want. Something's calling to you. What is calling to you? It's Raising Cane's, of course. Do you need that flavor fast? Order at raisingcanes.com or in the Cane's mobile app, where every chicken finger is hand battered and cooked to order. Every crinkle cut fry is crispy, perfectly salted. Every Texas toast buttered to perfection, and every bite is not complete without that craveable Cane sauce. I know Kale loves the Cane sauce.
That is a good sauce.
Drives him crazy. Are you hungry yet? Dive into Flavor Flav's faves. It's Cane's o'clock. That is a tongue twister. Time to dig in. Raising Cane's chicken fingers. One love, y'all. Convenient, tasty, Cane's. What a great choice. And we're hanging out here in the Toyota Lounge. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR, and trucks have always been a part of Toyota's DNA. For generations, Toyota has built durable legends destined for greatness and perfect for Colorado. And whether you're conquering off-road trails or hauling the weight of the world, there's a Toyota truck that's just right for you. Look around you in our great city of Denver, our great state of Colorado. The demographic changes every day. There's a lot of different types of Coloradans, and no matter what type of Coloradan you are, there's a Toyota out there for you, from the trucks to their 16 different hybrid vehicles. Find one. Do yourself a favor. Visit your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. There is AutoNation Toyota Arapahoe in Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson Toyota West in
Kelly,
Lakewood.
can you pull up the Toyota Camry? People got to see this, man. It looks freaking amazing. They did because the Camry is always the entry level car, the everyman car. You got to see what they did though. They redesigned it. I just found out about this very recently. You can hop on when we're on an ad break.
Toyota, again, is a proud partner of the Denver Nuggets and an official vehicle of DNVR. Let's go places together. Might be done in that Camry, dude. Might be done in that Camry.
I'm telling you, we're supposed to be promoting the SUVs and stuff. Look at this slick grille on the front. Doesn't this look like a sports car?
Dude, that looks great.
$29,000? I think that thing for $29,000, that thing looks incredible. Nobody with me?
No,
I think
it
looks incredible. That's your entry. Me too, but I just look at that and I go, oh my God.
I also wonder, you just got to think the value, if you were Toyota and you maybe gave one of those to one of your podcast hosts, just the value in that.
Yeah. That would be pretty valuable.
Imagine how good the reads would be.
Yeah. I drove to work today. It becomes part of the
Yeah, I don't walk anymore.
45 miles to gallon too. It's incredible. All hybrids. I'm into it. Wynn's back here. Segment 3 now. DNVR Nuggets Podcast. So here's where, just to catch you up to speed. Here's where we just left off. That the Kroenkes doing the next man up, Adelman and Tenzer, could be the right move. We don't want to just throw out and say they have to spend money. We used Ishbia as an example of somebody that went and got the shiniest, most expensive thing, and it was a disaster. But so it would signal, one, though, that it would be unquestionably the cheapest option. So that's one thing that would be true. And then number two, my theory is that if you did that, it's probably because Josh feels that he can either take more responsibility, be more at the helm than ever before, or maybe he feels he's already at the helm in large part, and it's we don't need some big name GM. I've got this. I need people that are doing more specified jobs, and I will make sure my hands are on the culture and direction more.
Yeah, I think that's the correct read. That would make sense to me. I mean, like, when it comes to David Adelman, like, I'd be pretty surprised if he's not the coach of this team.
We haven't done coach. Well, we'll get coach later because I think that one's
Yeah.
an easier conversation.
But yeah, I mean, it definitely does seem like they're thinking of going in-house and just bringing up Ben and Tommy maybe in the mix as well, guys who have been here forever. I think the positives of that are like they know the team, they know the organization, they know the city.
Yeah.
And then
They know the culture both when it was good and when it was bad too.
Right.
So they kind of know what's needed.
yeah, absolutely. And then with Josh, I think you're spot on. I think he would have to have more involvement then. And maybe that's his goal.
I was going to say, I think it might even be a desire. I don't
Maybe.
know. This
Yeah.
is me again, just speculating, but I think it might be a desire of like, I'm a basketball player. I know all these guys.
Yeah.
Like I can do this job.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if he can.
I mean, of course.
I don't know. It definitely is risky, but in terms of, I mean, we've been playing the blame game for the last couple days on this show. Everybody's been playing the blame game since the season ended. One way to really not even like have a chance of not shouldering the blame is to put yourself in charge.
Well, I don't know if it'd ever be that. I don't think he's going to name himself president of basketball operations. I think it's
Yeah.
more of like you name someone a GM, but it's like, hey, this guy is not somebody I'm going to have to fight on decisions.
Right.
Ishbia style, and then we hear from you 45
You
times.
bring me
throughout
the
year.
decisions and we will collaborate from there
Yeah.
kind of thing.
And with how it was previously set up, it was you bring me the decisions and then it's like yes or no.
Yeah, I'll approve or whatever.
Right.
I think Josh more involved in that.
Yeah, for sure.
But this might, to me, signal more involvement, even more like active leadership in the
Yep.
organization. And so here's what I will also say that I have learned in working for a growing corporation is that vision, talent, all of those things, even individual execution are important, but they make up half of the equation. The real value in leadership is the structure you leave behind after you go. And to me, when we talk about the Nuggets' shortcomings, I think it is a shortcoming of structure as much as anything. I think the structure was vulnerable to the conflict that arose, and then it fell apart. And for me, this is why, and I put this on Twitter, just kind of vaguely like outlining my thoughts, but this is how I feel about it is whoever the Nuggets hire, the modern NBA requires a structure that works in harmony and alignment. We have a vision, and here's the thing. So when Cal says we're going to go young and we're going to draft these young guys, it's like, okay, well, what is the structure in place to make sure these guys hit or give them the best chance? Do we hire a team behind that has a system in place that gets these guys from point A to B to C? What does the coach say that's going to, okay, we're going to play them in this moment and then that moment, and we're going to give them these reps and that? Everything from top to bottom is working that along the same lines. I don't think the Nuggets had that established structure.
They had a lot of it, but they didn't have like 50% of it.
Right.
But also,
And it wasn't in harmony is the bigger thing.
Yeah.
So even if you have a structure, if the structures are working against each other, you don't have a structure.
also, how big is the player development staff? How
Yeah.
well are they paid?
Yep.
What is
You have
the
to
equi-
invest in these
these
things.
Well, I
things-
mean,
yeah.
when Cal did invest in that, that is the
Right,
thing.
right.
He
How so?
hired a shooting coach. He
But even-
invested in a bigger player development staff.
But that was a bad, in my opinion, a bad structure because he hired somebody that Malone viewed, correctly or incorrectly, as a Cal loyalist.
Sure.
You could argue
Sure,
as a
sure,
Cal
sure,
spy.
sure.
So that's what I'm saying is
Exactly. Yeah.
the whole machine has to be, this is our plan.
Right.
This is how we operate.
Right,
We
right.
do this with our young players. We do this. Our coach operates, we have to develop these young guys. What's it going to take for us to get there? We have to do this, this, and this. And that was not in harmony in any way. It was the most disharmonious thing you
Right.
could have had.
Right.
And that's why I say if Josh thinks, well, I can come in and I'll be the top of this, it's like, that's fine. You might have the right vision. You might be a great decision maker. But everything below you has to have the most firm, clear, and harmonious structure
Right.
for it to work.
Yeah. You're exactly right. Something I worry about, can we talk about worries about if they hire in-house?
Okay.
Some of me thinks the Nuggets need some fresh eyes on this whole thing. Like, part of me thinks that they need somebody from the outside to come in and look at how things are going and the current practices and the current structure and just how things are currently done and say, is this good? Is this bad? Like, should we change this and that? Not saying that, a Ben Tenzer wouldn't look to change some things up as well, but I think a new, fresh set of eyes kind of on this organization could be a very good thing, especially after how the last, 3 years have transpired. That's probably like the biggest pushback I would have is like, should we just get some fresh eyes on this thing?
Is there a specific way you think that fresh eyes are needed about like players that maybe are considered our guys that maybe someone comes in and says, are they?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything. I think players, just how everything's run, your just philosophy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I when you said that, when I personally thought, Murray and Porter, I think the organization and maybe someone understandably can look at what just happened and go, are we sure it wasn't the margins? Now, the immediate follow-up to that should be how easily can you handle the margins with your current salary cap, your cap sheet, I should say, right? With those two max contracts. So to me, I think if they sort of go with the internal approach, it is somewhat akin to let's largely run this thing back. Whereas I think maybe a fresh set of eyes comes in here and goes, I wasn't in here for 2023. Who knows what the return is? Murray and Porter don't mean as much to me. And that's a really blunt way of putting it, but you get what I'm saying. Different
feels different
look.
Yeah. I think there's probably some truth to that. I mean, there's definitely something. And I think even the Murray part of this, I've often thought he knew Malone had his back. And maybe there was some complacency there. Whereas a new coach comes in, it's always like, well, this guy didn't give me the contract.
Right.
This guy didn't do any of this. Like, these guys might trade me. And I don't think anybody wants to be traded like that. Like sometimes people wonder, like, I bet Murray would love to get here. These guys like it here. They want to be here. They want to win. They don't like that they lost. So I think that Murray being traded would hurt Murray a lot, I believe. So there's that whole thing. But the structure to me is the big part of this of, you have to invest in it because I do think, I'm not saying you have to spend the most. There are teams that spend stupidly. 30 people on their analytics staff and this and that. And I'm like, I don't know if those things matter as much as they used to. But you do need to develop a system whereby you say, we're not going to have guys who struggle with their shot. We're going to have guys that they come in here and we turn them into this. We're not going to have scouting departments that are rail thin or this or that. We're going to have a very good structure about how our scouting works so we're the best there. We're going to have developmental staff. We're going to have coaches. We're going to create an alignment so that everybody is on the right page at all times. And to me, that's what was missing. I think Tim was great at fulfilling a messy organization, a messy structure. He was great at holding it together. And when that was gone, you kind of saw like, okay, there's some gaps here. So to me, that's why I say I don't care who it is. I hope they do due diligence. But no one person is saving this. You need to restructure.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I mean, we'll see. I wonder if that's how Josh views it, though. Because I think that's obviously what it will come down to. Does Josh Kroenke view this as a system, an organization that needs fresh eyes and needs a total makeover? Or does he view it as we just need a couple tweaks here and there?
And this is why I get so bothered, man. And I'm not bothered because I shouldn't be bothered. I just, being in this, I've been in this 11 years now. It's a long time to pick up on just how things work. And I hate this idea of like players are in a vacuum. Like, oh, Peyton Watson, you were going to win with Peyton Watson. And I'm always like, why not him and why did it have to be some other guy? Well, he sucks. Look at his college numbers. He averaged 2 points. Now look at his this or that. And it's like, yes, he is this. Teams find a way to make those things work though. And that's what I'm talking about is the longer I'm around just both business, a growing corporation, but also the more I cover this, I'm like, margins can turn. Good players, you don't just get the number one recruit, the number one pick, and you turn into a juggernaut. It's not a coincidence that the same organizations seem to always find the steals, always develop the guys, and the same organizations. Oh my God,
why for so many years every draft pick the Spurs made, you were like, oh my, I can't believe the Spurs got
they got that guy, and you're like, yeah, he was available to 30 other teams too. They didn't take him.
Right. I mean, also, that's happening with the Thunder too. If you just look at guys on their bench that they picked up late in the draft, if it's a Wiggins
and they have misses.
And Isaiah Joe, who was a cast off from Philly,
and Ousmane Dieng, who was like a lottery pick, didn't hit, and it's guess
what?
But
not yet.
But they survived it because again, they weren't. They had built in a structure, and that's just my whole point. So the GM hire to me is more about what are the Kroenkes going to signal about their ability to turn this organization into a machine. It once was. And
Right.
I don't know if it was for any other reason than they had the perfect amount of people in the building at the right moment in time, but they have to turn it into a machine in a way that I don't know that it is right now. And we'll see. I think Ben Tenzer, the one thing I'll say about him, I don't think he's the best scout. In fact, I don't know if he's a scout at all. To be honest with you, I think he's like a little bit of a scout, but not really. He's not a scout.
Not his background.
The Nuggets also, I think, have to bring people in. I mean, it is weird that they have Jeff Schwartz representing half the roster, and I do think that probably is something of a weakness. In today's NBA, the agents have as much power as the organizations.
Oh, sure.
Especially the big ones. And I think the organizations that have great relationships with Clutch, great relationships with CAA, great relationships with all of the other agencies, those are the ones that you get. It's like that's so important. It's so valuable. And I don't know that the Nuggets have that as currently constructed.
Right.
And they might have to invest just in that part of it of how do we get in the room with Clutch? How do we get in the room with William Morris? How do we get in the room with all of these different little arms to make sure we don't miss out on anything?
That's a really
Or sign Saric to a player option.
I was going to say, or be beholden to making deals to an agent because he holds half of our roster. Did Schwartz represent Reggie Jackson?
I don't think so, but I don't remember. Does Saric though, and
Right.
Ross.
So that the worst package deal ever because they can't play together, but they were packaged. So yeah, I think that's a really good point. The Nuggets kind of, we talked about them used to be almost an insular organization compared to like the NBA's one big club, and the Nuggets kind of never were a part of it.
Yeah.
Player wise, that's kind of changed over the years a little bit. Like I think DeAndre Jordan, Jeff Green, Russell Westbrook, I think are a little bit more of like, oh, we're a part of the ecosystem at large here a little bit more. But I think in the organization itself as well, right? Like you do see some of the same like lauded assistants get hired from place to place and or executives and got people with connections, part of the larger family that to me, it's just sort of vaguely felt like Denver has kind of been disconnected from.
I think Ben Tenzer would bring harmony because I think he is a very likable person who is very level-headed. I think that when there's conflict, he would be a good person to have in the room to make sure that everything's working correctly. So if that's the role, it's like, hey, this is the most important thing. I think that'd be great. You need to put people in there, though, that make the structure work because structure is not just harmony. It's also efficiency. I think they can accomplish the harmony part, but will it be efficient? That's going to take more investment in creating a structure and maybe even hiring other high-profile people. The best scouting department.
Right.
All right, we're going to have the best person at working with agents then because now we need that arm here as well. We need the best development staff and the best everything. So that's what you would need, and then I think Tenzer could be a good guy to sort of like manage that. It would be every GM operates differently. Cal was the number one scout. But all the other scouts were like, no, he's great. That's a great scout. So that was his strength, but he wasn't good at the other part of this. Right. Tenzer might be good at the other part, but he's definitely not good at the scout.
Oh, I think he is. I mean, Ben Tenzer's a Tim Connelly guy.
Yeah.
You know, Ben's a guy who kind of grew up with the Nuggets. He's been with this organization forever.
Yeah, he was here
since
well
he
before
was
Tim.
An intern at law school. He's been with the Nuggets. He's risen up through the ranks. He was the GM of the G League team last year. So he does have some experience in GMing. Obviously, GMing of a G League team is very different than an NBA team, but he does have experience there. And I think he's cut from the cloth of Tim in terms of being more of a relationships guy, being a guy that has good just culture, good organizational chemistry. He has good vibes, I think, just if you're in a room with him. He's a good connector. He knows a lot of people throughout the league. He's very well connected. And I don't know what his chops are as a scout, but I think you're right. Like, he comes from, like, the Tim Connelly side of, like, oh, I have a relationship with this guy, and I know this guy, and I can put them in touch. And I think he's, like, very well connected in that regard.
Yeah. When you go to the coach, so that's the front office, and maybe they extend it and they bring in some veteran and they do this and that. But the same questions would arise, by the way. You hire a Bob Myers who's very well established. Is Bob Myers here to answer to you, or are you entrusting him to run the whole show? And if you're just hired Bob Myers but nothing else, how effective could he be if you're not giving him what he needs to be his most effective self? So it's not just about Tenzer. This is about whoever you would bring in. When you go to the coaching side of this, I do think it's a little bit simpler.
Yeah.
The coaching is a mystery box, man. I am sure there are great coaches out there. Adelman might be one. I think people are too hard on him for some of the little things. Like, one thing when you say he didn't make this adjustment here, Nuggets didn't have anybody, man. He got handed a roster with 3 games left that, by the way, they had to win to get the home court advantage in the first round, which turned out to be pretty important.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like he could throw Pickett or Zeke Naji into the playoffs. I think he was stuck. I think the damage was done prior to him, and then he had like 2 levers to pull, neither of which were good. And so, how could he go with a lineup that didn't have Jokic and Porter on the? It's like, what else could he do, man? Play him 48 minutes?
David Adelman, I don't know how you can say he did anything other than like an A job.
I agree.
He went undefeated the rest of the regular season, won a playoff series, and then helped push the Thunder to 7 games.
They were minus 900 to win that series, the Thunder were.
And
minus 900.
They were underdogs against the Clippers as well. Nobody really gave them a shot at making a run of any kind. I mean, I think he showed a lot of coaching chops throughout both playoff series. And here's the other thing with Adelman. Like I said earlier, I'd be very surprised if he was not the coach. Like, I would be kind of shocked, actually,
Agreed.
if he wasn't the coach.
Players like him, which is honestly half the battle.
Outside of Jokic, who's never vocal about these things,
Right.
who is the most beloved and trusted and important Nugget outside of Jokic?
Aaron Gordon.
Aaron Gordon.
Loves him.
Who said the most explicit and effusive, I want him back. I want him to have a full training camp. Aaron Gordon. I think that's a very strong endorsement.
And here's
No question.
here's the other
Jamal
thing.
did too, by the way.
Here's the other thing. The Nuggets, I think, were going to look for a coach that was very similar to David Adelman.
Right.
David Adelman is, in a lot of ways, the opposite of Michael Malone.
Right.
You know, Michael Malone is the old school, raw, fiery coach. I think David Adelman is the younger, more forward-thinking, X's and O's type of guy. Like, the makeup of David Adelman, that's the type of coach, the archetype of coach I think the Nuggets were going to look for anyway. Also, David Adelman's a guy who's been up for a lot of big jobs in the past. He's interviewed for some of these top head coaching openings in the past. He will get a head coaching job eventually if he wants to. All of those factors coming together, it just makes too much sense. Also, I think the Nuggets will maybe try to make a big move this summer. I don't think they're going to be able to. If I had to predict, I just don't think that big, massive move is coming. I bet they kind of run it back. You would want to run it back with a coach that's familiar with your roster.
Right.
That's a good point.
By the way, the other thing, and just to circle back on the Tenzer piece of this, is if it is him, one of the toughest things he'll have to do this summer, because you're right, I don't know if they make a big splash. If one's available, that would be really tough to negotiate as well. That would be, you got to go from rookie to expert level negotiator here. But the one that's coming no matter what is the Christian Brown extension. And Bobby Marks says he expects $30 million.
It's a lot of money.
The Nuggets can't do that. They literally cannot sign him. I mean, to $30 million would be so crippling. It's like, you cannot do this. So he has to go into Christian Brown, beloved, did everything for the org that he was required, has been great. We can't pay you what you're maybe worth, what some other people think you're worth. That's a tough place to be, but some negotiators make it happen. Some do not.
Right.
That's a tough day one on the job of like, hey, man, this guy that did everything we asked and everybody loves him.
Every single thing.
And by the way, if we lost him, would be crippling to us. You need to sign him for below market value.
Here's why you should
get
take
into
a
the
pay
room with
cut.
Christian, and he's like, "Who are you?"
And you go and really all you can do is go, do you really think you're this kind of a player somewhere else? And which is
I don't know if that will go that well.
It would not go very well. So no, I mean that's what I'm saying though. It's like he did, as far as like how he fits here, he's done everything you've asked. And also, we talked about this. I thought he approached his regular season in a somewhat wise way, as someone hoping to get a big extension. He maybe could have been more of a 6 point per game. I play the best defense you've ever seen for 82 game guys, but that wasn't going to get him $30 million a year. Being the second best transition offensive player in basketball might. So I do think there was a little bit of like, I kind of like averaging 13, 14 points per game, you know?
Right. So that'll be tough. You also have a Peyton Watson negotiation that I think is actually trickier than people think. I mean, you kind of want to bet that you can get good value on him now, but you also don't want to overextend yourself in case he doesn't grow. So that one's tricky as well. So it's a tough gig. But with the Adelman piece, I do think players liking you is such a big deal. It's honestly half the battle. I do think he's smart. I get that people were unhappy with little micro decisions that were happening. He wasn't perfect. He did make mistakes. One of the things people said was he never called timeouts. I think that was deliberate. I think he knew that he needed timeouts at the end of the game because of how tired those fourth quarters were.
I also feel like that's why he didn't take a chance on some 50-50 challenges.
100%. As he looked at it and said, I have to have 3 timeouts going into the fourth quarter because I
100%.
need all of them to make sure my guys don't fall apart.
Yeah.
So
And we were saying that as the playoffs were happening too.
But it's just a common criticism I see where I'm like, guys, I don't know, man. Like, there's not that many levers to pull. It's not like he had some gem on the bench and it was like, how did you not play Hunter Tyson?
I do think. Look, this is all with perfect hindsight, but the lineup he threw out to start the second quarter of Game 7,
It was really rough.
I was like, that's gonna sink. But
And I think it's because he played Murray and Yoke through, right? So it was like he did that, then it was like, crap, now I'm
But
in a
also,
pickle.
if he just runs Murray out there and then Murray's gassed again in the fourth, and then
Yeah.
it's all easy to say now. I do think he made mistakes, but I think what's more important is that the players bought in. And I'll be honest, man, listening to these Josh quotes, watching him in the locker rooms, I think from the point of we are moving on from these two guys, what does the rest of the season look like? I think Josh would damn near say mission accomplished.
because it salvaged some hope of the season. It was a sinking ship.
And everyone came back together. Now, whether he should feel that way or not, I'm not. I'm just saying what I think.
Yeah.
I think he's really, really excited that he was able to salvage whatever the Nuggets once were.
Yeah.
And I think that I think
that's fair, though, because I also was like, is the culture dead? Is this thing over? And they fought in a way where you're like, you know what? Get a little bit better.
I think 6 months ago, I would have been like truth serum. I really would want to ask every guy, do you still want to be a part of this?
Yes.
And I think right now they would all say yes.
Yeah.
So
I agree. And that's an important thing. And Adelman was a contributor to that, as was Josh Kroenke. You know, it's tough to fire a guy with 3 games to go, but to your point, I do think it was the right move, albeit maybe a little late for my taste, but it was the right move.
did work.
So that's it. I mean, that's kind of what we're looking at here. I wonder what time frame will look like because even though the Nuggets don't have a draft pick, the offseason is right around the corner. You kind of have to start moving on some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think you want to start moving on this stuff as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Something, I don't know if you caught this in David Adelman's post-game presser the other night. He was talking about like player development.
Yeah.
We need to have better player development or more player development. I can't remember exactly what word he said. To me, I immediately thought back to how there was nobody in the gym over the summer, last offseason.
By design, nobody wanted to be here.
Yeah. And I think his answer to that question, I'm going to have to go back and watch the presser again, but it was about like, how do you get better? How do you get better internally?
Yeah.
And he said player development. And so I've got to think that he has some ideas about what our offseason structure needs to look like, what our open gyms need to look like, who needs to be here this summer specifically in terms of like the young guys. I can think of a couple guys that definitely should be here. And so the sooner you commit to Adelman and he can iron out his staff and he can iron out exactly what he thinks the player development plan should be this summer, I think the better.
Yeah, I agree. We have any super chats, Kale? Let us know in the comments, by the way, what you think. I mean, a lot of this that we're talking about today, because I know everybody kind of views it as go get this guy, go get that. I just am telling you, I don't think it's that simple. I think the Nuggets have to create an organizational structure that they are a little bit weak on at the moment.
Right.
So it's
If you go and hire Bob Myers, or if you try to hire Bob Myers, and he says, okay, cool, you're going to pay me this money. All right, we agree to the salary. I'm also going to need this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And I need to hire this guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I need to hire this type of coach and this type of scout. Do the Nuggets want to commit to that?
that's the question.
That's the question that comes with hiring some of these bigger name people that I don't think everybody thinks of.
Yeah.
And the Porter Murray question the chat really wants to talk about, I think that comes after the GM is hired. So we'll probably, that order of operations will probably be reflected in our show as well. Big, excuse me, super chats. Big Honey. Malone made it back to the conference finals before the night.
Is his debut on ESPN tonight?
I think maybe tomorrow. I thought Wednesday was ESPN.
It's the Western Conference Finals
if
tonight.
it's West, then yes.
Oh,
then
yeah.
he's got it.
Yeah.
Because
I'm tuned in.
Because the Thunder,
I'm locked
man,
in.
it took them 7 games, so now they don't
Yeah,
get to rest.
they
That's
didn't get to
crazy.
rest.
Dylan Cantor, I would be fine with Adelman, but if the Nuggets don't get a GM that can navigate the roster issues, it's going to feel like they're punting on the Jokic era. The real Matt Dog. What's up, DNVR Guppies? Is it even possible to move an MPJ Shard Zeke contract? Secondly, who do you want to win? Who do you think will win Minnesota OKC?
Well, we answered the first part
What do you think on Minnesota OKC?
or the second part.
I think OKC will win the series. I'm rooting for Minnesota.
We are too, man. We are
I think contracts are more movable than people think, but Zeke, Saric, those
They're
are tough.
definitely movable. They will be very tough to move, though.
I don't think you're getting great value for it. Go to overtime if you're watching us on our Fast channel. Check us out on the internet.
the internet, the World Wide Web. Victor Belu. I want Andre Miller as our next head coach.
There's a sentimental pick right there.
I want Andre Iguodala.
I wonder if Andre Miller would be good. You know, it's hard to say. I like him.
It's a lot of work.
One of
being
my
a head
favorite,
coach.
probably maybe top 5 favorite Nugget
A
all
lot
time.
of- I think one thing that the player
He is in
coaches
the organization.
have to learn over time is like, oh, this is not just a part-time thing. You gotta be working that gig, man. Smuggets Gold. Sup, fellas? Dream is to catch a finals game at the bar. I live in
man.
Orlando. Will it happen? P.S. If we get rid of Murray, chip window closes, in my opinion. Peanut butter and jelly.
Man, I hope it happens. We hope you see you out here next year.
Book some refundable tickets for the finals next year.
And
to
if
Denver.
not, Colorado's great in the summer, man. We'll tell you where to go and hang out.
See, coming from Orlando to Denver to watch the Nuggets, way better than going to Orlando to watch them that year they were in the bubble.
Correct. Good
The
point.
thing is, the window is still very wide open. It is still wide open.
Jose Aviles, bring Steve Hess back and get Jamal in shape on day one.
Jamal got to get himself there, man.
Yeah.
And I kind of, I mean, look, I'm slightly optimistic that next year will be the year of Jamal.
So the Nuggets are not doing
Wow,
the Nuggets are not doing exit interviews. I believe, which caught me off guard because I thought this question would be better for exit interviews than after Game 7. But
Nobody does exit interviews anymore.
I know. I forgot. I wanted to ask Jamal.
It's a sad state of
Like, hey, are you going
affairs.
to come into the camp like in your best shape of your life?
I was going to say, given the context of how the last 2 seasons ended, with fatigue and depth being large conversations, is there any thought to approaching your offseason differently? But I did not ask that question, and that's on me.
And meanwhile, Jokic might play in
Eurobasket?
Yeah.
Oh, man. We got to fly to Lithuania this summer.
Is that
You guys
where it
down?
is? Lithuania?
You guys down?
Okay.
Yeah. Are you kidding? Yes.
It'd be incredible.
You don't even. Yeah. 100%.
Tommy Balchetis will show us around.
Dude, Tommy bracelets.
Tommy bracelets,
Let's
man.
do it, man.
Marty. We got a lot of Lithuanians.
That actually sounds like an
Big
awesome
Val.
time, dude. Nugs. Yeah. Big Val, you're
Can we
invited.
make a trip over there to sign Big Val to a 1+1
The D-
mid-level taxpayer exception?
the fellas sign Big Val.
Bro,
Be
a
great
follow-up
episode.
to the documentary 100 Invisible Threads on Lithuanian basketball history. I'd be into this.
Why not?
We need a Lithuanian on the team. Big Val.
Ibotta, are you listening? We're just saying, everything's for sale. Nugs. I thought for years that any good player can take the role of Murray. Yoke can do 2-man with anyone. What would it look like with Fox, Hallie, Fred Van Vliet, I assume is what he's trying to say there, and Hero?
Fred Van Fleet.
Fleet.
I don't know, man. I will say this. Fox hasn't covered himself with glory or had ex-teammates rushing to his aid.
No. It would look pretty sick with Halliburton.
I mean,
I'm not gonna
Halliburton,
lie.
yeah. I mean, come on.
Halliburton's
What are we
like
talking
a top
about?
10 player. Yeah.
The other
Hero,
three, though,
I don't know. Fred Van Fleet, kind of long in the
Fred
tooth.
Van Vliet
He's really good, but
would be like kind of like low budget Jamal Murray. I feel like it looked kind of similar.
Denver's defense would be literally 30th.
he's
I
a really
think.
good defender. He's actually an elite defender, but
Well,
he
he's
is tiny.
He's tiny.
Yeah, but he's a really good defender.
Yeah, but
I think you could create a lot of the similar stuff with Van Vliet.
Guys, we're kind of talking big picture stuff here before we get more granular, but we will continue to do this because it's such an interesting season. So we appreciate you tuning in today. Hope you enjoyed the conversation about what makes a successful org work. Let us know in the comments what you think, and tune in tomorrow. We'll see you then.